At this point, we comic fans are pretty much used to the fact that things are going to change when they get translated to the big screen. And in the case of Wonder Woman 1984, it's basically the same deal as any other superhero film. Sure, some things are kind of similar as their comic origins, but other things aren't quite there. And in this video, that is exactly what I'm going to be talking about today. I'm going to be taking a look at a handful of things that were changed for the movie, and maybe even touch upon why they might have been changed in the first place. So sit back, cuddle your formerly dead lover inhabiting the body of a complete stranger, and relax, as we go ahead and dive right into it. Oh, and spoilers for Wonder Woman 1984, obviously. You've been warned. Let's start this video off by looking at the all-powerful MacGuffin of the movie, the Dreamstone. This powerful hunk of rock grants the deepest wishes of anyone who holds it, though these wishes do come at a cost, which might explain why Cheetah becomes all furry and why Wonder Woman spends half the film looking sickly. In the movie, it is explained that the Dreamstone is a product of the God of Lies, the Duke of Deception, who thrives on the downfall of civilizations, like any good comic book villain. In the comics, however, the Dreamstone was created by the Dream of the Endless, a sort of godlike personification of creativity, hence why it's called the Dreamstone. It was then passed down through the ages and eventually wound up in the possession of Dr. Destiny, a lower tier enemy of the Justice League. Now, why exactly was this changed for the movie? Well, probably to better tie the Dreamstone into Diana's mythological roots. At least, if I had to venture a guess, that would probably be it. Now let's shift over to the guy who became the personification of the Dreamstone himself, Maxwell Lord, arguably the main baddie of the movie. The biggest change with Lord comes down to the source of his powers. See, in the movie, he wished to become the Dreamstone itself, absorbing its wish-granting abilities. From there, he used it to get his way by taking what he wanted from people in exchange for granting their wishes, often by tricking them into asking for something minor. In the comics, however, Lord's powers were a lot simpler, instead falling more in line with typical telepathic abilities, though he could use them to do stuff like control Superman, so, you know, still pretty powerful. Right up until his neck snapped. Rough. Now why was this changed? Probably, once again, to connect it more to Diana's magical sort of feel. It just worked better in the movie this way. Speaking of baddies, let's take a look at the other villain of Wonder Woman 1984, that being Barbara Minerva, aka Cheetah. In the movie, Minerva was a geologist working at the Smithsonian alongside Diana, and everything seemed to be peachy keen with her right up until she came into contact with the Dreamstone. Thinking that it was just a silly rock, she made a simple wish. She asked to be just like Diana, which not only wound up granting her superpowers and really high confidence, but set her down a path that turned her into the furry ball of fury, Cheetah. In the comics, however, her origin story was a lot less fun and a bit more problematic. See, at some point, Minerva, an archaeologist this time, was offered up as a bride to a god, whose name I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce, but it's right there on screen. However, because she wasn't a virgin, this god instead transformed her into a cannibalistic, feline-esque person. Understandably enraged by this, Minerva dedicated her life to destroying all gods and demigods, Wonder Woman included. Yeah, if you can't see why they might have changed that origin for this movie, maybe go back and listen real close to that story. Near the end of Wonder Woman 1984, we got to see Diana donning a super fancy set of armor, known as the Gold Eagle armor. As was explained earlier on in the movie, this armor was actually made for an ancient Amazonian hero named Asteria, who we later found out was actually totally still alive and played by Linda Carter, which is awesome for numerous different reasons. However, in the comics, the Gold Eagle armor was actually made specifically for Diana herself, and was meant to not only function as proper armor, but also look good. The idea was that it would be what she would wear during ceremonial events, such as, you know, weddings and funerals and stuff like that. But she went on to wear it on quite a few other occasions. Now, why was this changed? Simple. It gave the filmmakers an interesting way of introducing Asteria, who they seem to have future plans for. Finally, there is Diana's ability to fly, which the film kind of made it look as though she could always do. She just sort of required a pep talk from Steve Trevor to activate it. But what about in the comics? Well, in the comics, she was granted the ability of self-propelled flight by Hermes, the messenger of the gods, as a gift, which might just be the most amazing gift ever given to anyone ever. Could you imagine being able to lasso lightning bolts that soar through the air? Now, why was this changed? Well, it's a nice little end cap to the emotionality of everything involving Steve Trevor in this movie. So, I mean, that makes more sense than just having a random Greek god show up and be like, hey, guess what? You can do this now. So it kind of makes sense. Now, one thing that I didn't talk about is the origin of the invisible jet, which in the comics was basically a weird shape-shifting crystal thing that was given to Diana by some kind of mole people. Because, you know, that makes a ton of sense. Seriously, guys and gals, I've said it once, I'll say it a million more times, comics are really flippin' weird sometimes.